Dear friends, welcome to another episode of The Informant. Today, we're diving into a chilling statement made by Vladimir Putin. He has declared that if the West authorizes Ukraine to use long-range weapons against targets deep inside Russia, then NATO and Russia will officially be at war. But before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said the decision on whether Ukraine should use long-range missiles against Russia should be made by each ally individually. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for the use of Western missiles, such as the US ATACMS and the UK Storm Shadows, to strike Russian targets and reduce Moscow's ability to carry out strikes. While Stoltenberg supports discussions on the issue, the US and UK have not yet made a decision. Some US officials question whether such a move would have a significant impact, while Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that allowing such strikes would be direct Western involvement in the conflict. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer met with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni on Monday, September 16th, to discuss support for a proposal to allow Ukraine to use long-range missiles to strike deep inside Russia. Ukraine is awaiting permission to use Western-supplied missiles, such as the Storm Shadows, to target Russian military targets. Although the UK has already decided to support the use of these missiles, it is seeking support from the US and other allies. Starmer also plans to hold similar talks in France and Germany, and to discuss the issue at the UN General Assembly. Meloni expressed support for the allies' decision, stressing Italy's commitment to ensuring that Ukraine is in a good position for peace talks. Starmer reaffirmed Ukraine's right to self-defense and sovereignty. On Wednesday, September 11th, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and British Foreign Secretary David Lammy met in Kiev with President Zelensky for high-level discussions. According to multiple reports, one of the topics was the potential authorization for Ukraine to use Western-supplied long-range weapons against Russian territory. While no official announcement followed the meeting, Zelensky hinted that they are still waiting for the green light. However, this alone was enough to trigger severe reactions from Russia. Dmitry Peskov, Putin's spokesperson, stated that if Ukraine is allowed to strike inside Russian borders with long-range weapons, Russia will respond with what he described as serious and severe measures, not just against Ukraine but also against the countries supplying these weapons. In essence, Peskov hinted at potential strikes on the US, UK, and France, the nations responsible for providing Ukraine with long-range missiles. Shortly after, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov echoed these sentiments, reinforcing Peskov's threats. Lavrov ominously warned that if Western long-range weapons are used against Russia, the response would be equivalent, implying direct retaliation against the supplier nations. By Thursday, September 12th, Vladimir Putin himself weighed in, warning that if Ukraine is given permission to strike Russian territory with Western long-range missiles, the nature of the conflict would change dramatically. According to Putin, the United States, NATO, and Europe would be directly at war with Russia. He concluded by stating that Russia would adapt to this new phase of the conflict and take appropriate measures. In other words, Putin, Peskov, and Lavrov are all signaling that the use of Western-supplied long-range weapons would, in their view, trigger a direct war between NATO and Russia. But why is Russia reacting so aggressively to this possibility? And perhaps more importantly, are these Russian threats genuine? Is the world on the brink of a global war? Russia's reaction is understandable when considering the lethality and efficiency of these long-range weapons. One of the first that comes to mind is the British Storm Shadow and its French variant, the Scalp. These are large, heavy missiles, over 5 meters in length, weighing nearly a ton, and equipped with a 450 kilos explosive warhead. Launched from the air, these missiles can strike targets up to 550-600 kilometers away, meaning they could hit crucial Russian air bases near Moscow if fired close to the Russian-Ukrainian border. Their precision is remarkable, as demonstrated by their role in damaging a small Russian submarine in Sevastopol. The destructive power is significant, with these missiles also responsible for leveling the headquarters of Russia's Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol. Should Ukraine receive Western authorization to use these missiles on Russian territory, Russian air bases within 500 to 600 kilometers of the border would become prime targets, forcing Russia to relocate its fighter jets and bombers to more distant locations. Another precision weapon Ukraine might use if authorized is the HIMARS, along with its ATAK-MS missiles. The HIMARS system, even in its standard form with a range of 80 kilometers, poses a serious threat to Russian bases and depots near the Ukrainian border. With ATAK-MS missiles, which can reach up to 300 kilometers, even more distant Russian air bases would be vulnerable. These advanced technologies certainly alarm and worry Russia, so yes, the Russian reaction is understandable. But are the threats from Peskov, Lavrov, and Putin real? Is a large-scale war between Russia and NATO actually on the horizon? An open, large-scale war between Russia and NATO is something neither side wants. If any NATO member is attacked, all 31 alliance members would be obliged to intervene, meaning over 3.5 million Western troops would face Russia's 1.1 million soldiers. Soldiers who, as we know, are already bogged down in a seemingly endless war within Ukraine for over 2.5 years. Many analysts believe that if Russia is struggling to deal decisive blows to Ukraine, a country using only some Western weapons, there is little hope for success against NATO's full military might. Russia has admitted in previous statements that if forced to fight NATO directly, the alliance's overwhelming technological and numerical superiority would push Russia to use nuclear weapons to avoid defeat. However, Russia is fully aware that any nuclear action would prompt an equally devastating nuclear response. While Putin may be an expansionist dictator, he's not suicidal. He will go to great lengths to avoid NATO's direct involvement in this conflict, as evidenced by his numerous red lines that, once crossed, have often led to empty threats. What Putin and his regime's top figures are doing is nothing new. They are drawing red lines that, once crossed, are quickly forgotten, only for new ones to be drawn further down the road. Russia's reaction shows how seriously Putin takes the possibility of Ukraine using long-range weapons, but it also makes clear that Russia is unlikely to invite the full force of NATO into the war, knowing that would lead to a nuclear conflict which would be catastrophic for everyone. If you value independent journalism and want to support our work, consider buying us a coffee through the QR code on the screen. Your contribution is essential for us to continue bringing quality analysis and information. Stay tuned for more updates, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for the latest analyses and insights on the world's most urgent geopolitical issues.
В последние дни мы видим и слышим, как на очень высоком уровне в Великобритании и в США муссируется тема о том, что киевский режим сможет наносить удар вглубь территории России западными вооружениями большой дальности. И, судя по всему, это решение либо вот-вот будет принято, либо, судя по всему, вообще уже принято. И эта вещь, конечно, экстраординарная. Хотелось попросить прокомментировать то, что происходит.
Происходит попытка подмены понятий, потому что речь не идет о разрешении или запрете киевскому режиму наносить удары по российской территории. Он и так наносит с помощью беспилотных летательных аппаратов и другими средствами, но когда речь идет об использовании высокоточного оружия большой дальности западного производства, это совершенно другая история. Дело в том, что я уже об этом говорил, и любые эксперты это подтвердят, и у нас, и на Западе. Наносить удары современными высокоточными системами большой дальности западного производства украинская армия не в состоянии. Она не может этого делать. Это возможно только с использованием разведданных со спутников, которыми Украина не располагает. Это данные только со спутников или Евросоюза, либо на Соединенных Штатах, в общем, с натовских спутников. Это первое. Второе, и очень важное, может быть, ключевое, заключается в том, что полетные задания в эти ракетные системы могут, по сути, вносить только военнослужащие стран НАТО. Украинские военнослужащие делать это не могут. И поэтому речь идет не о том, чтобы разрешать украинскому режиму наносить удары по России этим оружием или не разрешать. Речь идет о том, чтобы принять решение о том, что страны НАТО напрямую участвуют в военном конфликте или нет. Если это решение будет принято, это будет означать не что иное, как прямое участие стран НАТО, Соединенных Штатов, европейских стран в войне на Украине. Это их прямое участие. И это уже, конечно, существенным образом меняет саму суть, саму природу конфликта. Это будет означать, что страны НАТО, США, европейские страны воюют с Россией. А если это так, то, имея в виду изменение самой сути этого конфликта, мы будем принимать соответствующие решения, исходя из тех угроз, которые нам будут создаваться.